me safe, providing for me you shield. Me Jaja heal, me Jaja free, me Jaja, you're my closest friend. Jaja King, Jaja, you are everything, so I sing, oh yeah. Jehovah Jireh, you're my provider.
Small and medium-sized business owners, promote your business on Fit FM Business Ballout. Call our sales office today at 876-377-3442 or 876-317-1991. Don't be left out. Promote your business on Fit FM Business Ballout.
Get your day started right with the Morning Connection. Weekday mornings, 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. right here on Fit FM 96.7. Connect with Julia Mikkel Benaya on the Morning Connection for news, business and artist promotions, great music and vibe. Morning Connection with Julia Mikkel Benaya, 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. weekdays on Fit FM 96.7. Your life, your music.
Destigmatize, the Western Regional Health Mental Wellness Radio Program, right here on Fit FM 96.7, to raise mental awareness and reduce stigma and discrimination through education, discussions, and highlights. Join us for lived experience interviews, to learn from the experts, for the Brainwaves Educational Focus segment, and Your Time, where you get answers to your questions. With host Dr. Lisbeth Crossman, a psychiatrist. So join us every Thursday for Destigmatize on Fit FM 96.7. Brought to you by the Western Regional Health Authority, Department of Mental Wellness.
That's just what I seek to find. Oh yeah, I ain't in the mood. I just need some solitude.
Fit FM is owned and operated by Communistation Company Limited, located in Stuart Castle, Duncan's Trelawney, Jamaica. We broadcast on FM 96.7 locally and is heard worldwide on fitfmja.com. Our mission is to amplify diverse voices and opinions, inform, educate, entertain, and engage listeners of all ages and lifestyle while promoting responsible community development. Fit FM 96.7, your life, your music.
Are you struggling with loneliness? Feeling depressed? Are you searching for a purpose to live? Are you ready to tap into your inner greatness? Ready to soar to your full potential? Come and be inspired. Join me, Dr. Asha Mwendo, on Healing Moment, Wednesday, 6 p.m., where we will help you to understand your purpose. We will help you to find your wind. We'll show you how to open your wings and fly. Healing Moments, Fit FM 96.7, your life, your music. Good evening, my people. How are you this evening? I'm your host, Dr. Asha Mwendo, and you're listening to Healing Moments on Fit FM 96.7. Healing Moments is brought to you by Wellness in Motion. And As usual, we want you to be a part of the conversation. So remember now, link us up on 876-513-668 or 876-478-9144. Send us your WhatsApp messages or your voice notes and we can play them on air. This evening, as a reminder that Healing Moments join and stand with the call for elimination of violence against our women and our girls. I have an awesome guest lineup for you this evening. He is Stephen Golding, no stranger to Fit FM, and we're going to talk Black History, Reggae Month, and so much more. But you know the drill already. You're going to get your pen, tell a friend, get your sip, listen to this bit of music until we come right back.
You are chosen. You've got to be aware of the wood that she's broken. Many are called. You are chosen. You've got to be aware of the wood that she's broken. Many say that they are a brother.
Yes, that's Sister Mowat with Many Are Called. And we know in this time, many are called, but few are chosen. And some don't choose themselves at all. And that's how it is. So in my little Let's Talk, which will not going to be very long this evening, two things. One of the things, as usual, the roads. Please, we're begging for the roads from Clarkstown to Duncans to fix. What if we don't give you one election surprise? Make it sweeten way up to come out and vote, please. Because to be honest, if I wasn't voting in the south and I was to vote in the north and I had to travel to anywhere to vote, me not come out. Trust me. But you can't tell another man what to do. That's just me. We need roads, right? And we don't want to demonstrate for it. Hello. It don't look good. We need roads. But my main thing for this afternoon, so this afternoon, while I am preparing to get ready to come in for the evening, I was outside getting a little of the sunshine that we were blessed with in the afternoon. I heard two young girls talking. They didn't know I was overhearing them, although I called them and I spoke with them afterwards. But they were concerned. These two young ladies were very concerned in that apparently both of them are not doing well in health. But their parents are not taking them seriously. And one of them even said she and her father went somewhere and she didn't feel good and she dropped down. And all them do is give her something to drink and then nobody taking her to any doctor nor anything. And what got to me is when she said to the young lady, remember, I don't have a mother near me, It's just my father and my auntie. And they love me, but they are not taking me seriously. One of the other young ladies said, when I called them and I was talking to them, she said she told her father that she's not feeling well from the other day in her head and otherwise. She said she have not repeated again to him because the last time she said it to him say, go on, I can thump you want. And because she don't want to be thumped, she's keeping it to herself. Parents, listen to your children. Listen to your children when they tell you something is wrong. Don't wait until last minute you're going to wring your hand and ball. It don't make no sense. Do what you can now to help your children to become their best selves. Yes, you might think they are pretending, but prove it. Take them to the doctor, get them checked out. And the good thing about it is, as bad as things are in Jamaica, we have our community clinics and you have the outpatient emergency at the hospitals that you can take your children to. So please get them checked out. And if you don't know what to do, ask the school nurse, our guidance counselor, to guide you in how to assist them, but do something. And my second thing is pretty interesting. I'm on being trained to become an election day worker. Oh Lord, help me! But while I was waiting for class to start, some young people came and started to talk with me, and I started to ask them their opinions on Reggae Month and Black History Month. One of the young ladies said, waste of time, foolishness. But a young man said to me, he believes it's a good thing because it gives him how to frame the present and prepare for the future. And I agree with him. He also went on to say, because we were having a discussion, and he said a lot of the things that I was telling him, he didn't know. And some things he's learning now, he's able better to frame his past in understanding who he is, because the history books don't tell the truth. And a lot of times, our history that we read is not the history that is real. So these, as much as we might look at it to say Black history is every day, and we are creating Black history every day, but this month give us a chance to focus. And so at this time, I'm going to reach out to my guest and bring him into the conversation so that, we can have a fruitful conversation. And my guest is no stranger to Fit FM, no stranger to Healing Moments. And a matter of fact, he's no stranger to most of us across Jamaica and internationally as well. So therefore, I have with me this evening Sir Stephen Golding. I really had a lot of introduction to make about him. But you know what? When they say that some people don't need no introduction and then they go ahead and introduce the people, I am trying to break that habit. So I'm going to say to you, my guest needs no introduction. However, I will let him tell you what he wants to tell you about himself. Sir Golding, how are you?
How you doing, Doc? Good to see you.
I am here and I'm
good to hear you.
Good. I hear you too. Yes. So
and good evening to your listeners on Fit FM.
Yes, all of them, people listening. Yes, man.
Yes. I'm good. Thanks for asking. Doing very good. Sending love to my people in Trelawney and that side of the island. Hope everyone is enjoying Black History Month, celebrating Reggae Month, and understand Jamaica's connection to Black History Month, even in its creation and foundation.
Amen. Amen. So tell the people a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I am the president of the UNIA, that's the Universal Negro Improvement Association. That was the confraternity founded by our first national hero, the Right Excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey. It was founded in the city of Kingston in 1914. So we are an organization that this year is 110 years old. And we continue to do the work that Garvey set out to do in terms of uniting our race and moving forward together economically, politically, socially, and otherwise. The concept being Africa for the Africans at home and abroad, and an African empire strong enough to lend its protection to its people wherever they are in the globe.
Amen. 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 And so that brings us now, and as I was saying to some young people this afternoon, before I got into the evening, I was talking about you. And, some young, because one of the young persons asked me, who is your guest this evening? And I told him, and he asked me, why? No, I'm not a politician's son. I said, yes, but what else do you know about him? Immediately he went and he Googled you. And because I said, I'm not going to tell you anything, use your Google for the right reason sometimes. And he went and he Googled you. And his response was, such a man needs to come to my school. After he read. And so he said, we as young people, so a group of them are gathered somewhere in Clarkstown listening to the program this evening online because they want to hear from such a man.
Wow. And which school is it
Right.
that they attend?
They attended Clarkstown Primary School.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm ready.
Yes.
Just let me know when.
Yes. So, all right. So I will further talk with them and get you to come and speak to them. That such a man can come and talk to them. 'Cause that was their words, such a man. Very interesting when you listen to young people and their perceptions that are
Yeah.
formed, and we have to help them to form the right perceptions.
Well, I tell you this, they're the generation with the most information at their fingertips.
Amen. And
So if knowledge is power, then they have the potential to be the most powerful generation on the earth.
yet to be seen. Of course, it's so true. Never looked at it like that, but that is so true. So, Stephen, you give an assertion to say that the formation of Black History Month, Jamaica was integral. Tell us about that.
Yes, well, Black History Month started out as Negro History Week in 1926, and it was
Mhm.
conceptualized by a man by the name of Dr.
Yes.
Carter Godwin Woodson. Also, the gentleman who wrote a very famous book called The Miseducation of the Negro. But Carter G. Woodson, apart from
Yes.
being famous in his own right, he was the second person to obtain a PhD, second black man to get a PhD from Harvard University. And he's the only child of enslaved Africans or Africans who lived through that period of slavery in America to achieve this educational height. But at the time that he conceptualized Negro History Week, he was the editor of a newspaper known as the Daily Negro Times. Now, the Daily Negro Times was a newspaper founded and published by the Right Excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Carter G. Woodson was associated with Garvey as a member of what was known as the Negro Historical Research Society, which included other Jamaicans such as Joel Augustus Rogers and other luminaries of the Harlem Renaissance, such as John Edward Bruce, Arthur Schomburg, who they have a center named after now in New York. And it was through this conceptualization of the fact that we needed to relocate our history as Black people in the Americas, because the educational system only taught us that we were descendant from Africans who had been enslaved, who had been trafficked. And the rhetoric at the time was that Africa had made no significant contribution to civilization. These men made it their mission to scour the libraries of Europe, to dig up every research that was conducted about ancient Egypt and the civilizations of Ethiopia. They found out about things like Timbuktu being the first university city. And, the information was so enlightening to them and so powerful that they decided we needed a means of communicating this history to our people, even if the school curriculum at the time wouldn't allow it. And so Negro History Week was created to create the time and space for us to talk about the true history of Africa and not the colonized version. And this went on for almost 50 years until the 1970s, when a group at Kent State University decided that they were going to expand it from being a week to a month celebration. And this is how Black History Month was born. So that connection to Marcus Garvey is something that Jamaicans must never underestimate or undermine when we talk about Black History Month being an American thing. It's not an American thing. It's an African thing for Africans in the diaspora who were systematically robbed of their history, their culture, their religion, their very names, right? And it was conceptualized by these revolutionary thinkers who, as Marcus Garvey said, realized that the people without knowledge of their past, history, origin, and culture will continue to be like a tree without roots.
Amen. So this is from what relevance is Black History Month to a people like us and other Africans across the diaspora diaspora, away from home, here in Jamaica. Why is Black History Month important?
Black History Month is important because it allows us a chance to explore, what was taken away from us in the Middle Passage. It allows us to begin to connect the dots with who our ancestors truly were, the creators of reading and writing, of arts and sciences.
Yes.
Our ancestors were people who even the Greeks and the Romans, who today form the foundation of our educational curriculums in the West. It teaches us that they themselves admit to having learned from the Africans, who they said were closer to their gods than just being fellow human beings. As Garvey said, the poets of old wrote about this. If you read Homer, if you read Socrates, if you read Plato, they told the truth of Africa's place and position and its contribution to civilization and to education. And, Garvey puts it eloquently that when Europe was living in darkness, that Africans had already reduced the heavenly constellations to minute and regular calculus, right? Garvey said these things. People don't understand the power and the depth of our first national hero in terms of the knowledge that he was able to acquire about this race and our true place in history. And this is the reason why he was a part of creating this Negro History Week that became Black History Month as an alternative medium of giving knowledge and empowering our people outside of the controlled mechanisms of the colonial classrooms that would rather teach us that we come from nothing and we are beholden to other civilizations for what we have today, which makes us comfortable in continuing to work for their advancement in terms of recognizing and achieving our own.
Right. And you have said really much. And as a young man did rightfully say, Black History Month creates an opportunity for him as a young man to understand who his people are. When I was having a conversation with him and I was asking him, what do you think about slavery? I asked him the question, do you think slaves were brought from Africa, or do you believe that they were enslaved? He said, the book says, this is what he said, the history book says that slaves were brought to the New World. And so we had that conversation, and even explaining to him what slavery that we had in comparison to Bible slavery and stuff. And so these are the times when you get an opportunity now to re-educate the young and the old as well, because a lot of persons my age and your age, Stephen, don't even still get the full concept of who they are and where they are coming from. So how can we use this month properly to educate our people?
One of the most important things we have to recognize that we are at the point now where we need to fully decolonize our educational curriculum, right? No slaves were brought from Africa. Africans were brought from Africa, and they were trafficked, they were kidnapped, they were enslaved. It's also important for us to understand that the concept of slavery in Africa at that time was nothing akin to the chattel slavery that was created by the Europeans, a type of slavery that enslaved the fetus in the womb of the mother before the child was even born. Slavery in Africa was a part of our penal system, part of our punishment for crimes, right? When Europe came and found slave markets in Africa, that was the purpose they served, for people who had committed crimes against the tribe they were in, and their punishment was to be sold into slavery. One, to get them away from the tribe if their crimes were that heinous, and two, for them to, through their work, to pay some compensation for what they had done. Europe took this to a dastardly level, right? Whereas in Africa, slaves were absorbed into the tribe that they were sold to, and their children were never born enslaved. The Europeans took it to own body, mind, and soul in perpetuity forever, to the point that they would even bequeath their enslaved Africans to their children, right? To the point that they would even impregnate African women who would then give birth to children of the slave masters that themselves would be enslaved by their own parents.
Parents,
Nothing
yes.
like that ever happened in Africa. So our people need to understand it's not as simple as writing in the book that, oh, Africans sold Africans and slavery was going on. We're talking about two different types of system. One that served a social function and purpose in dealing with crime and punishment, and another that completely dehumanized the African, robbing him of his identity and robbing him of his rights, not only as a citizen, but as a human being.
Yes, yes. And a lot of us need to really grasp that idea. That is what made slavery in the New World, in the Caribbean, in Europe, in Americas, dastardly.
Yes, yes.
It wasn't just
And
because
and
of the
and
word
and, and not
slavery
not
and
in
20
Europe.
plus slavery. It is the whole.
Not in Europe, because that's another part of the
Yes.
story we don't get, is that what they were, the atrocities they
Mhm.
committed in the Americas and in the colonies, their laws did not allow for them
They
to
did
do
do
those
it.
things in Europe, you know? And so we had even
Yes.
Africans who had been enslaved in the colonies who, when they got to Europe, challenged using the laws of the time to obtain their freedom. And many of those
Yes.
Africans, people like Equiano and Kwabena Kogwano, and the Sons of Africa, became advocates, and they were the ones who started the abolitionist movement. They were the ones exposing the atrocities of chattel slavery, and
Yes.
who eventually helped to bring about its downfall.
Amen. And as I was saying to some of the young persons today, those who were living in England and other parts of Europe could not, who didn't come to the Caribbean, could not fully grasp what the slaves that some of them owned, but they have never seen, were going through. Because what they know as slavery in their country was not what slavery really was in the Americas, in the Caribbean, and other parts. It was completely different. So when they heard that the slaves were in uproar, they couldn't figure out why, because they didn't have a true concept of what was really happening to the people that they.
Yes, that's another clue to Asha, because think about this.
And
When
it's
they
good
give
now
us the
that
argument, when they give us the argument that, you know, Africans were dealing in slavery before, think about this. How many slave uprisings does
Mhm.
history record happening on the African continent? I can't name one, right?
Right.
But the
I can't
Europeans
think of
arrived in the
either.
Caribbean and in the Americas in the late 1490s. And by 1522, the first uprising of enslaved Africans was recorded on Hispaniola. So it
Right.
shows you that the system was completely far removed, so utterly shocking, so utterly atrocious, that not even in less than a generation, the Africans were rebelling against it.
Right. Because it was nothing that they could conceive in their hearts or their minds. They couldn't conceive it. And that is what I was saying to some of the young people. So when our brothers back then, the names you had just called, when they realized what was really happening to their brothers, they are the one who started the movement for freedom of their brothers. Yes, we have all the Caucasian friends who came along, who after coming to the Caribbean, see what was truly happening, went back and joined with them, like the William Nibs and others. However, the movement was started by our very own people who realized that this was nothing that any human being should be going through.
Absolutely right. And not only realized, some of them had lived through it. And by the grace of their wit and by the grace of our gods, were able to survive, were able to gain their freedom, and then were able to fight for the freedom of others. And you're right, William Nib, Granville Sharp, and others, many of these were just young politicians and members of the British Parliament at the time that, you know, our brothers and sisters fighting on that side needed in order needed to lobby them in order to enact the laws that would end the institutionalization of slavery. And it's so sad that in remembering our history again, we get the colonial version of that history. And so we teach our
Yes.
children about William Sharp. We teach them we teach them about William Knibb, Granville Sharp, Pitt, and others. But so many of our young people still do not know of the Sons of Africa, still do not know
They
the name Oluwada
don't.
Equiano, still do not know the name Kwabena Kogwano. They don't know about the Africans who
No.
started this movement and who later enlisted these white men in order to pass laws in the British Parliament. So it is a clear indication of how we've received a colonial curriculum that continues to undermine our real role and our real history, and to celebrate their own achievements
Yes.
over that of the Africans.
That is so true. That is so true. And as you were talking, I think of the challenges now in the US that I'm not sure how many states, but I know a few states are having that challenge where the Black history that is being taught in the schools are even more atrocious than what was originally in the book that we have read, because they're making it slavery look like is not, and it didn't really truly happen that way. And what I'm hearing, and this is heresy, I've not seen any document, but I'm hearing the complaints of the people talking about the changing of the history of what we went through as slaves. I don't know if you know more about it than I do, which maybe you do.
Yes, this revisionist history, and there's a move in America. They've moved away from affirmative action, but at the same time, also the issue of reparation is ringing loud. And some states have initiated task force and investigations. Some states have put forward policy ideas. Some have enacted them. But again, it comes from a misconception what the purpose of Black History Month was, right? So while they talk about it not being needed in the school, or they're trying to emphasize the human race over any particular race, the situation of the Black people, the Africans, the descendants of enslaved Africans in the Americas, is a unique situation, not comparable to any other race. It is perhaps the most dastardly social experiment that has been carried out in the history of mankind. It was not a decade-long Holocaust like the Jews faced, right? But it was a 3-century-long systematic brutalization, murder, rape, brainwashing, and colonial programming of a people who had given Europe so much in terms of arts, sciences, and so forth, right? So we cannot allow the colonial narrative to prevail, right? We have to catch up on the years that we were systematically, decommissioned of our identity. We have to systematically recommission that identity. And this is why it is so necessary for history, and particularly African history, from our perspective and our narrative, to be taught in our schools, both at the primary and secondary level. As I said earlier in this interview, knowledge is power. And the people without that knowledge are like rootless trees, dead in the water.
Very true, very true. Because, for me, I looked at some young persons I was talking to, and when I started to talk some of what we are going through here now, explaining to them that slaves, maybe 1 or 2 slaves may have been sent to the Caribbean, but most of who came were free men, free women, taken abruptly from their lives, brought to be enslaved. Some were princes, queens, high royalty. And one of the young girl that I was talking to, she straightened her shoulders, straightened her back, lift her head and said, I think I'm a descendant of royalty. I think that I am from one of those royal persons. And she suddenly see herself in a different light and start to feel a little better about herself with just a little bit of information that I was able to share. Imagine if we use this opportunity to re-educate our children and educate those who we have not educated with the false story yet. We start to educate them with the right things. Imagine the difference that it would make in their lives. So, Stephen, let's come back to Jamaica now. Black History Month, Jamaica, what do you think?
I want to make a point on something you said before I answer that, Asha. And I want to instruct the students who are listening to Google King Afonso the First. Afonso, the king of the Kingdom of Congo, who was one of the first African communities that the Portuguese met and engaged with at the start of the slave trade, the African Holocaust. And there's a letter written from that king, right, to the King of Portugal that states clearly that the European slave traders are violating the rules that he had put down, meaning they're not buying slaves who have been committed crimes, but rather they are kidnapping people at random, and at one point even kidnapped members of the royal house. So the king of the Congo kingdom wrote to the king of Portugal telling him that not only must he stop sending, but that he needs to locate some of his own family members who were wrongfully taken and as early as the late 1400s. So we're talking about at the beginning of the Ma'afa, the transatlantic European trade in Africans. So from the very beginning, they were violating the terms of the treaty, right? And these things don't appear in our history books, right? So we can continue to regurgitate this thing about we sold each other, but the truth is there to be found. And another reason why Black History Month must be maintained, and more so why our curriculum must be decolonized and our narratives expose the real truth of Africa's history.
So true, so true. Yes, so as we continue the conversation now, read Jamaica and Black History Month. And looking at how are we using it wisely? What better can we do? How can we do it? You know, is the governments, and I say governments deliberately, governments over the years and governments to come, are we seeing the importance of Black History Month?
Well, in Jamaica, we have also twinned it with Reggae Month. Now, reggae is also a part of Black history, but are we understanding the power of social engineering that is inherent in teaching people from a perspective that builds their confidence and empowers them? No, I don't think we have reached that point yet. For example, we still have
that even though we have,
we still have a Greco-Roman narrative, and I'll give you an example. Students going to school and learning math will learn about Pythagoras' theorem, right? But they never learn who Imhotep is. But who is Imhotep? Imhotep built the first pyramids long before Pythagoras was even learning how to count. Right? Pythagoras himself speaks of
speaks of Imhotep. You're going in and out. Right. So whilst the internet gives Stephen a little challenge and he comes back to us, these are some of the important points he's raising. You're back with us?
Yeah, are you hearing me any better?
Hearing you now, yes.
Yeah, I was just making the point that if we know these truths, why do we continue to teach about Pythagoras without even mentioning Imhotep?
Right. And that is very important, you know. We do not seek to lift up our Black brothers who have worked the fields before us, as it were. We just tend to lift up the others, the Caucasians and other persons, Germans, everybody else, Greeks, except our own people. And
this is essentially what Garveyism is about. redirecting the narratives so that when students are taught in our schools, they can relate to, they can identify with, and they feel a part of this knowledge that has come down from generations, and not feel as if someone is holding it over our head and foisting it upon us. They can connect themselves to the history, and they can be rooted in their own story. I give you an example. For example, for many years our churches who
Yes. System continues to go in and out. But we know what the internet system is like sometimes here in the Jamaica and maybe everywhere else, and the weather not so 100. Are you back with us, Mr. Golden?
I'm hearing you, Asha. I'm not losing you at all. So I don't think it's
Okay,
my
we are losing
internet.
you every now and then. Okay, continue. Sorry.
I don't know if you want to switch lines to a straight line, but I was just making the point that even the churches collude in painting Africa as
Okay. Yes, continue.
as a bad place. You know?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And so the fact that we have twin reggae month with Black History Month, are we more focusing on the reggae part of it, or in your opinion, and less on the Black history?
I think from a government perspective, a heavier emphasis is put on reggae than Black history. I certainly don't see anything in terms of policy from the Ministry of Education enforcing the celebration of Black history or doing anything special. Granted, 2 years now we've got the Ministry of Education to celebrate Africa Day in May, but I think a greater emphasis could be made on the educational part of things in promoting Black History Month annually in February, as opposed to the culture ministry, which does a lot of work pushing Reggae Month.
And I agree with you too. I have a strong I see more emphasis happening where the reggae part is concerned. I know in schools they have a Jamaica Day and they have other things coming up for the month, but I don't believe we create full use of this at school level. Even the secondary school level is almost as it's business as usual. And then you have one day when they dress up in colors. And I was laughing with somebody just yesterday in that some of us, in celebrating our Black history and wearing African garbs, as we call it, a lot of us are wearing Indian garbs thinking it's African. And we don't know the difference. And that is so sad, because somebody brought me a nice dress and said to me, "Here, I give you this for African month," and I'm saying for Black History Month as your African outfit. And I said to her, "I love it. It's really nice, but this is Indian, you know." And she was like, "Indian this? I didn't know." We don't even know the colors or fabrics. These things need to be taught, and the purpose, because I have learned that a lot of the fabrics that we get from Africa are made in different states, and they have different purposes. And when you see a woman in some of their outfits, you know exactly what story she's telling.
You're so right. You're so right. You're so right. But we must also remember that the Africans are the oldest branch of the human family. And even Ethiopia conquered India as far as the Ganges River. And you'll see similarities in the food and the manner of dress between Ethiopia and India. But I take your point, Asha, and it's true. And even some of the African fabrics are made in Europe and then sent to Africa to be fashioned.
Yes, that's where people don't know that. And so let's look back a little bit more again. I know you have been doing the rounds, going to different schools in the Western section, and you have been educating our people the history of themselves. And in this case, I don't even say Black history, just history of who we are as a people, and Marcus Garvey movement. Is this a good time, this month that we have, a good platform, a good time to re-emphasize, re-educate, and also advocate for Garveyism in schools as part of our African celebration and understanding and bringing more concepts in. Where do you see that going at the school level? Is it happening in most schools, some schools, no schools?
Well, the challenge has always been asking teachers to teach something they themselves haven't been taught. So we've worked for a number of years with the teacher training institutions to introduce Garveyism there. Just this year now, we've started to go into the field and we're going parish by parish. January 19th, we were in Hanover, and we are now creating professional development seminars for teachers who have been in the classroom 20 years, 30 years, 10 years, and didn't have the benefit of learning Garveyism as a part of the curriculum when they were in the teaching. Manchester next,
and that is very important.
And we're going to continue. We're going to continue with that, so that we eventually will not only have new teachers coming into the field who have been trained in Garveyism, but also old teachers who have been in the field who have been upgraded with this ability and knowledge now.
That is so true, because it is really kind of challenging to ask someone to teach something that they themselves did not learn. And so that is one of the challenges that schools do face as well. But Stephen, as we continue to look at Black history and its impact on our people, I know the UNIA is still active and doing its thing. Tell us a little bit more about the UNIA, what it is doing, and how young people can be a part of the process if they don't live in Kingston, because a lot of things happen in Kingston, but you know, the rest of Jamaica.
So, sorry, repeat that question for me, Asha.
Okay, so we are looking at UNIA, its education in Black History Month. How can, first tell us what is happening with UNIA, how persons can become involved, especially for those of us who live outside of Kingston. What is happening, when it is things are happening, how can people become a part? Because this is one of the good platforms to understand who we are and how we operate as Blacks.
Well, of course, we have our monthly mass meetings every first Sunday, and we have been doing every other mass meeting virtually. So the next one on the first Sunday in March will be virtual, and this is so people don't have to be in Kingston to connect with us face to face. I'll also be giving a lecture at the Michael University College tomorrow between 11 and 12. It's their Black History Month lecture. I was at the Ubuntu Awakening Summit that is going on this week in Kingston with Dr. Arikana Chiomboro.
Right. Yes, we are not hearing you again. Stephen, okay, so as Stephen, until the system allows him back again, yes, we are looking at the UNIA, and are you back with us now, Stephen?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you again, yes.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes,
so there's a lecture tomorrow, 11 to 12 at the Michael University College. It's open to the public. And as I said, those who are interested in joining the UNIA, they can find us on social media at UNIA Jamaica, Facebook, Instagram, and they can send us a message, sign up to become a part, and we'll send them the information to log into our virtual meetings. As regards the western end, we are working on establishing a branch out of Montego Bay that would include
Trelawney. Okay, so the system keep freezing, and hopefully it will pick up back again. Steve, now can you connect with us again?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So we're trying to organize a branch out in Montego Bay. But people, look for us on social media at UNIA Jamaica for more information.
All right. So if you are listening in, remember now, UNIA Jamaica on all social media platforms. That way you can get to learn more about UNIA and what is happening in Kingston and the rest of Jamaica, and how you can be a part of the process, that you can learn more and become more educated to who you are and where you are coming from. So, Stephen, as we have the next 10 so minutes left, we're giving you the floor now to continue to talk to us about Black History Month, its purpose in Jamaica. What can we see happening, or how do we advocate with our governments for the future to get the real education of us as a people into Black History Month?
All right. How I sound now, Asha? You hearing me well?
Yes, I'm hearing you well.
Yes. As I said before, it is for our teachers to begin to think creatively in terms of how we decolonize the curriculum and provide a curriculum that is more empowering to young Black students. In the lecture I gave out in Lucy on January 19th, I even challenged this thought of how we teach our students to be competitive against each other instead of taking a collective approach that teaches them to rely on each other in order to accomplish tasks and accomplish assignments. For many generations, we have been having them compete against each other, and then the imperial system or the colonial system creams off the best of the best from the top. You understand? We have to rethink these formats. We have to rethink these colonial systems that we have inherited, that were never ever designed for uplifting and empowering our people, but rather just equipping them with the tools to continue to build someone else's empire. And this is one of the things I'll be talking about in our lecture tomorrow, which the subject is about teaching Garveyism and how to teach Garveyism. Garveyism is much more than just the history or the biography of Marcus Garvey, but it is a Pan-African philosophy that must be sewn into the fabric of every subject that we teach, from geography to math to language to music, right? And Black History Month provides the platform for us to explore and to dissect these things, to open the eyes of our educators, our ministers, and our leaders to the possibilities of Garveyism as the greatest tool for social engineering in our country. You want to fix crime? Teach Garveyism. You want to fix poverty and alleviate poverty? Teach Garveyism. You want to create greater civic pride and social values in our people? Teach Garveyism. And this is what we've been saying for the last 2 decades.
And that is so true. That is so true. Because to be honest, I have been doing a lot of research where Garveyism is concerned. And I realize that if we embrace this principle of this visionary, this prophet, as it were, the works that he put out, we would have a better nation. We would have a better nation. We'd have a better set of people who understand who they are, have more pride in who they are. Because I believe one of the challenges that we face as a people is that we do not have enough value on ourselves. We see others above us, even in our own little country. And until we can envision, see, feel, taste our level of importance in the whole society, in the world, see who we are, how important we are to connections, we will not continue to fix the challenges that we face. We will not get rid of crime and violence, unfortunately, because, as you said, competition is taught. It is taught to us, and she said the fittest of the fit will survive, and I must be the fittest, and I will take down the next one to be fit. And so these are some of the challenges that we do face. In the next few minutes that you have left, talk to us. Use the passion, the understanding, the knowledge you have. Talk to us as a people. Let us get a picture of who we are and who we can become as Jamaicans as we celebrate Black History Month.
Asha, you made a very good point in terms of valuing ourselves. And it's so interesting that Marcus Garvey called his program African Redemption. Now, the word redemption means to redeem, and the word redeem means to restore value to. So Marcus Garvey understood clearly exactly what you just articulated, that we did not value ourselves, value our history, value our ancestors, value our contribution to civilization. And this is what allowed a concept of white supremacy to take root and to prevail in our mental thinking and in our social attitudes. And it is the reason why 85% of the wealth of this country is concentrated in the hands of the minority, right? The minority of non-black people. And this ascertains nowhere else. So it is proof positive of a social conditioning that is meant to prey upon the systematic way in which we have been devalued as human, and how we have internalized that in ourselves in devaluing and disrespecting anything African, anything black, while we lord and bow down to anything that comes out of a white supremacist base. And we must not be afraid with confronting the truth of that, right? It's not until we confront the reality of that we can now systematically decolonize our educational system. If we continue to live in denial, we will not address the real problem and the social ills that we face as a consequence of the legacy of slavery and the legacy of colonialism will continue to prevail in our society.
That is so true. That is so true. And you know, one of the challenges we face is that when a Jamaican or any other black person achieve something of high stature in our mindset, we look at it as, oh, wow, this is a black person. It's as if it's an exception. We do not see black achieving greatness as a norm. We have not normalized the idea of black people achieving greatness on the international world. We see it as an exception when a black person achieves something. Still do in 2024. And that is so
absolutely sad. Right. Absolutely right, Asha. I gotta run and leave you though. Please, thank you for inviting me. And thanks for celebrating Black History Month and using your platform to encourage that. People have to understand, as I said earlier, the real root in the creation of Black History Month, the real purpose of having a Black History Month, which is the decolonization of the narrative and the relocation of our true history as the descendants not of slaves, but the descendants of the builders of the pyramids and the creators of education. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for being with us this evening. So there you have it. That was Stephen Golding sharing with us his story, his input where Black History Month is concerned. Listen to me, people. We have to come together. We have to raise our voices. We need to know who we are and understand where we are going. Because until you know your past, you cannot create the present that you need to build a foundation for a future. Thank you, Stephen, for sitting in with us this evening. My people, Black History Month is young. It's just 7 days in. We can still come together and lift our voices, change the story. Those of you who have an idea of who you are, go to your schools, volunteer your service, volunteer your time, talk with the principal. Can I get 5 minutes, just 5 minutes in a devotion to talk to our young people? Black History Month means to you as a person. That will help them to create some civic pride, some ownership of themselves and ownership of who they are, to create the change that we seek. Crime and violence will stop when a nation, a people understand who they are and realize that they are great in themselves and can create the greatness that they seek. When we understand how important we are as a people to our own selves before we seek to be important to others, let our young people understand that greatness is not something that is far-fetched, and when one young person or a black person achieves something, you make it like, wow, that's an exception. But you normalize greatness amongst your people, that they too will see that it is possible. Help the young women to understand that they are sisters and daughters of princes and princesses, and they are great. For young men understand that leaders don't abuse their women folks, but they fight and stand up for their women folks and support the men folks. Let's change the narrative. Let's educate. Let's change our people. Let us make Black History Month valuable, useful, and purposeful. Let us not waste the opportunity we have now to build strong foundations for the next generation. We have to do it. Our ancestors did their best. Let's build on their legacy. You are listening to Healing Moments on Fit FM 96.7. Your life, your music. We will do this all over again next week, Wednesday, when we have another program lined up for you. Please embrace your Blackness. Black is strong. Black is good. Black is awesome. Be Black. Be strong. Be bold. Enjoy Black History Month. Walk good, stay blessed, and we'll do it again, as I said, next week, Wednesday. Blessings.